we managed to create the car screen, or rather the product screen, and you're able to see a list of what you are selling, I want us to pick from here, because the next question should now be, how does one buy a specific car here? Let's see how we can take care of that particular functionality. We want to go to XAMPP here, and using this menu, you can go to your backend and see where you have the htdocs files, and then the project folder that is for the scripts. We already have this particular PHP scripts. We have connect, we have cars, we have this. Now we need to develop one for ordering. And the same time, we need to go to the backend, rather our database. We already have that here running, and create a table to accommodate orders. So I'll create a new table for orders, so that you can have a list of all the orders. So let me just call it orders. We can start with these few columns that are here by default, and then we will look for others. So ID and user ID, the person who is buying, car ID, the car that is being bought, and then we can assume this is the amount, or we can start with quantity, and we can configure this first. ID remains an integer. This quantity is also an integer, so we don't have to specify this. That is the length of values. Then we can go to auto increment for the ID for this particular table. Right, let's just save that table and find out the additional columns that we need for this. So we will definitely need to know the amount, so we will add one more, and also the day when this order was placed, and maybe we can stop at that point. So let's add two more columns. After quantity, I'll assume this is amount. This can be date of order. Okay, we could call it order date, and therefore this changes to date and time, and we can actually have current timestamp as the default value. Amount can be in what format? Double, really huge value, and then we can save that. So this is our table. It will contain this, or this is the structure of our table. It is important to notice that we cannot store all the user particulars in this table. Neither can we store all the car particulars in this table. These are actually foreign keys borrowed from user IDs from users. Car ID is from cars, and using those values we will be able to join the values when we need to. So this table will only have foreign keys from these tables, and then we can join the values in this table with the values in those respective tables when we need to. Now we need a script to populate values in this particular table. So look at that. Allow me to now go to the PHP scripts and observe that the script needed to place an order is very similar to the one that is needed to create a user, the register script. So I will copy this, and paste it back in the same place. Rename it to, I will call it place order. I prefer having scripts or APIs that have, action verbs like do this or do this, as opposed to objects or nouns. So let me open this and make the changes that I need to make on this script. When placing an order, I will need user ID, I will need car ID, I will need amount, I will need quantity, how many cars. Those are the values that I will need to be externally supplied. So let's now finish up this. I will now need to name these variables in the same way for consistency. Car ID, car ID. Okay, I can type this. Car ID, this is amount, this is quantity. Quantity. Then the table is orders, and we need to follow the same order that we have here. So the first column is ID, user ID, car ID. So that order, you can always write it on some piece of paper, or just split your screen into two. So let's go to the script and finish that. So we are starting with the ID that is auto-generated. Then we have the user ID, then car ID, then quantity, I believe so, quantity and amount. Quantity and amount. The other columns represent the date. So I will just have this function called now invoked from this particular point, and then our script should really be working at this time. So let's see whether this works. We need to call this within Postman to test it before we proceed. So let's create a new script here. Create order, create order. This name has to match with the name that we have on the folder or the name of the script. So I will check that. I called it place order with hyphen, so I need to correct that. Place order. Okay, now we now need to supply those values. So user ID, car ID, amount, quantity. I think those are the values that we need just for them. Let me assume the user who is buying this car is when you have a table with foreign keys like this table called orders, where the foreign keys are user ID and car ID, it means this value, the values you supply for these columns must first exist in the those tables where these keys are coming from. So I'll go to a user. I'll assume user number 7 is buying car number, user number 7 is buying car number 1, for example. So I need that user number 7 is buying car number 1. The rest of the values, amount is the total. So quantity could be 2, and each car is costing, let's say, 500 or 200. So this could now be 400. Why we put this amount here, though it's still available in the price in the cars table as price, is that those prices within the cars table could change, offers and all that. Yet when a user places an order and they come back for their invoice, they should be able to see the amount at which they bought the car at. And that's why we put the amount here and the quantity, the amount specifically. Otherwise, we just go into that car, look at the price and multiply that by quantity. Okay, let's check this. Success. We've been able to create an order. I'll now go to the table called orders and see whether an order has been created. And you can see we have truly created an order. We know which user, we know which car ID and the quantity and when this purchase was done. Back to our application, because it is actually this application that is supposed to create that order. We are not going to do that through Postman. That is just to verify that our code is working. Now, how do we make sure, or how do we implement a functionality such that when we click buy, that particular product is bought and that data is added into that other table? So let's go to the file called CAS, which is similar to what is displayed here. So this buy now here, right here, we need the logic to add the car into the cars table. And look at the data that we need. We need car ID, we need user ID. Getting car ID is not a problem. Getting the price of the car is not a problem. Getting user ID is something we need to think about. And to fully understand that, we need to go to the login screen. This is the login screen. At the very place where we logged in, this part here, where user said we have been able to save this file, we need to be able to save the user ID so that we can use it on the other side. There are two ways to go about this. One is to use shared preferences, which I think we've used before, and that requires that we first add shared preferences here. And the number two way to go about this is to use a package called get storage. And I will show you how to use get storage because it is really very quick, and we're already using the concept of get in many other ways. So I write get storage so that we are able to store that single value like the user ID. This is the package I'm talking about. I'll get it. I've copied it. I'll put that version here. Make sure it matches or it's on the same line with this. Then get pub. This is a very quick way of storing small values. So once this is done, I'll now go to my login screen, because that is the very place I need to capture the user's ID as they log in. Good. So look at what I will do. I will declare an object of get storage. So final, let me just call it store. Store is equals to get storage. Get storage. If it doesn't show up here, it means you need to go back to your YAML file. Now that I have get storage, I'll come around here, just where I managed to log in, right here. I want to get the value of this ID. You could treat it as an integer or a string, no problem. So int user ID is given by server data, user details. This part we had looked at really. User details, the first user, who is the only user here, and then we get the ID. We really first must be sure that this script is returning an ID when the user logs in. And one of the ways to do that is to first check that script. I'll just review the script here for login to see what it does return. And here I was returning first name, surname. So I'm not really returning an ID here. So the ID of the user. So I'll just add it here and now it will be returned. Make sure you understand that part. Good. So when I get the ID, I'll now store it inside get storage. So look at how I do that. Storage, the one that I just declared there, sorry, store dot write. I need a key. It uses key and value. You use this key to store this value. So I just call it user ID. And what is the value of the user who is logged in? We have it here. We have it here. And that's it. Anytime a user logs into our system, their user ID is stored. Now, while at this, I also want to store the user's first name because I want to display it on the database, on the dashboard at some point. And I can just get done with this now because I'm already here. So this is a string. string, I'll just call it fname, then fname. Fname because I know there is a column that is being returned. As I can see from this script, there is a column called first name which is being returned into my application when a user logs in. So string first name, we have that, and I'll just use a very similar concept to write that here. What is the key? First name. What is the value that we want to store? Fname. And now when the user logs in, we can display it on the dashboard. Good. Now let's proceed to the ordering logic first. Back to our car screen, this part here. Now let's come up with a way to talk to the server to receive this order. First, let's we have HTTP here, so we are good. So let's make that call to the server first. HTTP dot, I'm still using get. Then we need to put the URL here. We need to put the URL here. So we will store this, whatever the server returns, into response. Whatever the server returns, we will put it there. We need to use URI dot pass and put that particular URL here. This one. My idea is to always just use what is on the on Postman directly as is, even with the hard-coded value. Once that works, then we plug in the right values. So let's see whether when we click on this, we are able to create an order. By the way, we can just proceed to create an order already with this, but just so that we are aware of what the server is bringing back, let's print response dot body. Remember, we said the URL part here, this part could be your domain if you are using cPanel, or could be this number here if you are using XAMPP but testing on emulator. Very important. If you're using XAMPP and testing on emulator, this is what you should have. If you are using your cPanel, you can write your domain there. If you are using XAMPP and testing your code on Chrome or any browser, then you use localhost here. Now, we have a challenge here. It's underlined because we need to await when we make this request. And the moment, this part is clear now, but the moment we say await, then we need to make this function async. So now that is gone. We can save this already. I suspect because we added a new package, we will definitely need to restart this. So allow me to restart the application all the way from login. In the meantime, I'll go to the database and get the credentials that I want to use to log in. Any of the users here, I can use that to log in. We are using a common password of 12345 and it is encrypted. I encrypted that and used the same password so that it's easy for me to remember. Good. This is still building so that we start the application afresh. In the meantime, as this builds, I could go to dashboard. You see where we were saying hi James. Since I am now saving the name of the person who is logged in, I can access that and display it here. Okay, so again, I need to declare an instance of the get storage. So final store. It doesn't have to be store because we use store on the other side. You can use something else. Get storage. Get storage. When we are writing to get storage, we use the keyword write. When we want to read from get storage, we could use the opposite of write here. So look at what I will do. I will replace this. I will interpolate. This is just string interpolation. I will say store dot get, sorry, not get, read. The opposite of write is read. Read, and now I'm expected to provide the key. Remember, the keys are always supposed to remain the same, but the values change. So let me check what my keys are. So at the login screen, when a user logs in, we are using the key fname to store the name of the person who is logged in. So now I can use that here to read that name. And just so that we take care of, in case there is actually no value under fname, we can just use this null operator here and ask ourselves, if this returns nothing, let's return an empty string like that. And that would just take care of any empty string. And I think that should make sense because you're using the null operator here. Okay, I'm not sure why this is not starting from scratch. I think I've been working on it. Let me run it afresh. So this should allow us to have this button, make a purchase, and store that data on the server side. All right, we have an error. Has to do with and I think many a times we face this error, and I want to just sort it out as you look at what I'm doing. So I first go to, okay, I did not intend to have this become a place where we sort errors, but let's do this settings.gradle. First we need to raise this to 8 point, let me first change this 8020 832 832, sorry, and then go to build.gradle. This is okay. I go to Gradle wrapper properties. This value, I'll also raise it to a different value. It's just that when I added the that get storage package now, which is likely to be a more recent package, then some changes are expected in this project in terms of the support version. I will check a different project to see what I used here, and I want to solve this as you look at it, because I believe you're likely to face very similar challenges. So let me look at what I use for the Gradle wrapper properties. I think it's 8.10.2, 8.10.2, 8.10.2. Let me build this now and see whether I am fine. I changed this part and the Gradle wrapper properties. Let's hope that sorts our issue. Okay, I think it will. So this should help you, those that face this problem when you are dealing with the code and that's not able to build. I think we could have changed the Java version 2 and app build Gradle. Could raise this to either 11 or 17. But maybe if it fails, then we can do that, because once we raise those other versions, we will need to do that. So three things I looked at. We looked at the settings of Gradle. We raised those 3 plugins. We looked at Gradle wrapper properties. We increased the version of the Gradle that we are using, but also we might have to change the Java versions here. But let's see whether that works. Okay, as I wait for this to build, maybe the next question will be thinking is this particular point, and that this is what I will cover in the next video. How do we populate this page with all the orders? And because we have an orders table which just has IDs, user ID, car ID, how do we join these two tables as we read the data so that the data comes back? It has the car details, it has the buyer's details, that is the user's details. How do we bring that all together in this order screen? That's what I will be addressing in the next video, and I hope to see you there because that is important. We will be using a very interesting keyword in the database called union. You have left union and union, so that we read data from different tables and bring all that into one query and be able to consume it in the application. Right. The other error that comes once you solve those two is the fact that you need to add this to the build Gradle, and I'll just do. I'll change this NDK version as was suggested, so I'll paste this one here and then run this project. Now the error should be gone. Our task in this video is to put that order, place that order here, right here. But you have to deal with the emerging issues right here. After it's installing, meaning the errors are gone. We did not even have to change the Java version. Okay. Let me get one of the users from the database. I'll use this phone number. Copy. Put it here. Put it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me see what is being printed back. String is not a subtype of integer, so it's expecting it's expecting string, but it's getting integer. So we'll just go to this particular point here. So it's saying actually what you're getting is a string, not integer. Very well, change this to string. No problem, nothing more. Just refresh and click on this, and now it should log in. Did I hot reload this? Okay. We need to supply these credentials again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then login. Let's say it says it's 1, 2, 3, 5. Sorry. Good. We logged in. I can see it on this side. Yeah, we are logged in. So take note of that. You'd rather read this as a string as opposed to an integer. Good. Now, did not get that name right. So that's another place we need to revisit, and we need to find out why that name was not read. First, let's do away with this because we are sure that name should be stored there. Read fname. The next thing is to confirm whether that at login is being captured. Fname is fname. User details. Details. Right. I'd actually log in afresh and see whether that works because we need to get that right. So I'll perform a restart because if that is not showing, it probably the ID will also not show. So let's hot restart rather. See whether this works. 2, 3, 4, 5. John. Actually, what happened, now it's appearing here. What happened last time when there was an issue with the ID because the code crashed at this point, so it did not proceed at this point, and therefore that value was not read. So now we have John. Let's proceed to the ordering logic. Let's place an order here. I'll just click on this button and see whether this order will be created. This will be very similar to the order that we clicked. So buy, We don't expect anything on this side because we're just testing our code, but we can see the order has been created. So let's proceed to refine this because it's already creating the order. And when we refresh the orders table, we can already see that the order has been created. The same order, the same user bought the same car, you know. So let's refine this part and provide the necessary, notification or alert when this is done. First, before or immediately we have this, we want to check the response. If response dot status code is 200, that means the server executed the request properly. There was no crash, no problem on the server side. We need to do something here. Else, in case the server had an issue, we need to do something here, and that is mostly to notify the user. So I will use get snack bar to report what the problem was here. Server error, order could not be created. Good. Then if this happened, we need to convert the entire response, the body part of it, into a JSON object. So var server, I could call it server data so that we maintain consistency what we've used. Server data is equals to JSON decode, then response dot body. Okay, now in that server data, we can go to look for the integer that corresponds to success, or we could just do this. If server data dot success is equals to 1, this means the order has been created successfully, you know. So we can just get this snack bar, and report success. We have received your order. Okay, what is this success? Success is this key that is being returned here when an order is placed. When you click on this, an order is created, the server is returning a string here that reads success, and that's what we want to use. Rather, let's use what is on Postman, this one here. We want to look, is the value of success 1 or is it 0? Because 0 would mean that we did not create an order. So let's proceed. Let's now update this change or save this change and run our code and see whether this logic that we've just added is shown here. So buy this car. You can see at the top there it says success. That snack bar at the top there says success, and this is what we have bought. Good. We are now able to place orders. There's only one problem. We are still using the hard-coded data here. So we need to replace this with actual values. First is the user ID. Where is the user ID? The user ID is stored in our get storage. So let's extract it from there. Store dot read. Did I declare an instance of get storage here? Not yet. So final store is equals to get storage. That's where we've been storing our values, get storage. Good. Now here, read, and then we provide the key, and the key is user ID. How do I know that? Because we have it here at the login screen. If you go to the login screen, you'll be able to see that user ID that you're storing. Back to this screen. Now, what else is hard-coded here? The car ID. How do we get the car ID? Look at how I will get this. the car ID, remember we are inside a list view here, and each list view is represented by this car list within the car model. So when I pick this entire value and bring it here and change this from model to ID, because it's the ID property of the car that we need. Where is this ID defined? In the car model. In the car model right here, where we have models. When we were defining a car, it has a property called ID, which is populated from the database's ID property. So we are good. By doing that, we will be able to capture the car ID. Sorry, my cursor is moving very fast. Okay, so that's good. What else is hard coded here? The amount, which is the price of the car. Okay, so how do we deal with this? The same thing. Each car has price. So we can just paste this here, but change from model. We're not interested in the model here. We are interested in the price. Alternatively, since we are now just buying one item, we don't have a cart, our project does not implement a cart, we will assume the price is the amount. Quantity, we can set it to 1 for now. Hard code it because you are not using a way to increase the quantity of cars that you want to buy. So for now, those are the values that we are using. So now, let's buy a car and see whether the car ID changes and the price changes. So now I will buy this car, which is, I think, 1.9 million. So I'll just buy it just like that. We have received your order. Then I refresh this. You can see the car, the user ID is 0. We need to deal with that. The car ID is 3. So that looks like correct. We don't have a user whose user ID is 0. Here we don't have a user whose user ID is 0. But for sure we have a car whose car ID is 3. This one here. I think this one. Yes. So let's investigate our code again. There seems to be a problem as to why the user ID is not picking the right one. We know the currently logged in user has an ID of 7. Is it 7, my user ID? Okay, so let's go back to the code and get it right. Why did we fail to read the user ID correctly? So to answer that, we need to go back to login screen and see whether we're actually storing user ID. We have a column called ID. Is it being returned? So one way to answer this question is to go back to the login script here and use one of the user credentials to log in and see whether user ID is being returned. So ID is being returned. So that ID, when returned, we read it, user details, then we store it under user ID, and then we call this user ID. We need to confirm whether these spellings are exactly as we are using on the car screen. And if that is the same, all we can do is to just restart our code and see whether it will get the right value. Read user ID. So let's restart this, login afresh, and see whether we will be able to get the correct user ID at the login screen. In the meantime, I'll go here in the users table, pick one of the users' login credentials. Anyone? Francis. Copy. Okay. Okay, the password is the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Then we go to cars. Let's just buy another car. This one. We have received your order. Refresh the orders table. We want to confirm that we now have the right order ID, and you can see user ID. You can see 13 there. So we only needed to refresh so that the changes we had made in the code take place. In the next video, we will look at how to now read this data and show it on the orders screen, my orders, so that I can look at the cars and the price and the quantities of what I have bought. This is what I wanted to cover today to be able to implement the script. Thank you.